in a second. Let's see. Hello, hello, Instagram. Good morning. I mean, it depends on where you are in the world. And we are live right here. It's afternoon, 1:47 right now in California. Let me close Facebook. Yes, and we can see each other. Awesome. That's you guys. If you're watching us on Facebook, whether in replay or right now live, um, it's you can see my guest if you are watching us on Facebook on Hummingbird Academy Today page. But let's officially start before I introduce our beautiful guest for today. Welcome everyone to Dream Big with Zhanna, inspiring you to reignite, refire, and refuel your life. And as always, today it's going to be a very insightful conversation. I'm really excited about this interview because my guest is the amazing Birgit Starmanns, and here she is. I just want to acknowledge you, Birgit, for being here. Thank you so
Zhanna.
much. Thank you so much for taking the time. I know how busy you are. So, guys, if you don't know Birgit, let me give a few lines of her official bio so that you can kind of get the picture of what she's all about. So Birgit, she's been in software industry, right, for a long time, and still is. She's working for SAP, correct? SAP still through thought leadership and strategy programs and finance and risk, correct?
That's correct. You got it.
Yes, she's also a Toastmaster, as a member of Toastmasters since 2006. Birgit holds a DTM. DTM stands for Distinguished Toastmaster, as well as Pathways programs. She served as the Public Relations Officer, PRO for short, for District 4 for 2.5 years, where she initiated the district social media presence and use of modern tools such as email and contact automation. Birgit co-produced the cable access television program Toastmasters Bay to Bay for over 10 years, which won the WAVE, and WAVE stands for Western Access Video Excellence Award for the show's final 3 years, 2013, 14, and 15, the category of educational programming by a community producer. On the club level, Birgit has most often served as a VP or PR, which is public relations, right? Publicity in various clubs, and is a two-time president of the club that is called Evening Stars, an advanced club in San Francisco, of which she is a charter member. She is currently a member of Evening Stars, Silicon Valley Storytellers, and online presenters. Birgit, I always use a little bit of my personal flavor to the person that I'm interview about the person I'm interviewing, and I just want to say, guys, she is such a bliss to be around. The energy that Birgit is radiating, and you can see her smile right now, and the stories she tells, it's just amazing. Her speaking skills are just excellent. It's just somebody who we can learn a lot from. So Birgit, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Zana. It's so cool to be here. I didn't even know you were doing this until you asked me to be on it, and I've been kind of looking at some of the previous episodes. So this is going to be a great session. I'm looking forward to it.
A great session, yes. And we titled it The Art and Science of Public Speaking. And with that, I just wanted to go back a little bit and ask you about what drives you in life, whether that's your big dream or like what is your inspiration in life?
Oh, I have so many dreams. The biggest one is really to make a difference. And then from there, you can start subcategorizing things, right? So I feel like I have a very positive outlook, and that's something that I like to share with other people because, especially right now with the pandemic, and it's very easy to start thinking negatively. And my whole secret, actually, to life is to think positively, to make it through some medical scares and yeah, just to have more joy of life. In terms of making a difference in a couple of different quote unquote categories of my life, within work, as you said, that I've got a role in thought leadership. So at SAP, I'm part of the Center of Excellence, but I've also done consulting and product management and solution marketing. And I like to joke that it's my job to make finance interesting. And that's why the thought leadership aspect is so fascinating to me because yeah, it's not so much feature function, but it's really uncovering trends for the future and communicating those and to really get everyone engaged and thinking in a more forward-looking way. I would say on a personal level, I've got a big dream about being the best dancer that I can be. While I grew up with tap and jazz, I've been doing ballroom with an incredible instructor, David Estrada. He's amazing. So basically to
I've
just hone my skills when it comes to that. And in using speaking, as you said, Toastmasters to make my message better, more compelling, and to really motivate people to use their voice as well. So primarily to make a difference, but there's so many subcategories when it comes to that.
It's interesting. I know your story a little bit, and Birgit has been through a lot. Like everybody has a story if you start speaking to them. And look at this positivity that is just you radiated every single time I see you. And we're not gonna go like deeply into your personal story today just for it. We might save it for the next episode for the future, but I wanted to touch upon the dance part of everything that you're interested in before we actually get into the public speaking and the love of it, and some practical advice that you can give people, because that's coming up. And thank you guys for joining us on Instagram. Thank you. So great to be with you here. We are talking to Birgit, who is a specialist. She's an advanced DTM. DTM stands for Distinguished Toastmaster. She's also a career person, meaning like still works in corporate, right? And that's an interesting combination. So dancing, I've watched you dance in different competitions, and I saw you win different competitions, and it's all on YouTube, and we can post the links for people to admire. So so you're interested in you basically doing finance, you're connected to that, and dance is on the creativity part. When did you develop the love for dancing? When has it always been in you since you were a kid?
I think it has been. My mother used to tell the story that I would stand in front of the record player and dance and sing along at the age of 2. When we moved to the States from Germany, I was about 7, and I'm convinced that she put me in dance lesson because I had too much energy, and there wasn't as much PE, physical education classes as we had in Germany. So I think I was driving her crazy. And initially it was tap and ballet, but at that age they didn't really teach us ballet. I didn't realize until years later that what they were teaching us in that particular class is tumbling, was forward rolls and backward rolls, and I hated it. So I kept going with the tap. And then the next year, instead of tap and ballet, it turned into tap and jazz, which is something I've really loved to do all my life. In college, my summer job was dancing at a theme park in Busch Gardens in Williamsburg, Virginia. I discovered ballroom over 5 years ago, but initially I didn't really know what I could do with it until I met David. And what fascinates me about ballroom, it's so different from other kinds of dancing where you're basically doing it on your own and all of a sudden it's partner dancing. So there's just such an increased awareness of where your partner is and how you're moving together, not just how you can do a step on your own. And so the competition part is, to me, part performance and then part also making sure that I keep improving my technique, because if you improve your technique, then you can express more artistry as you go down the path. And there's something that's interesting about some of the ballroom competitions. Some of the videos I think that you've seen were the solos, quote unquote, which is basically David choreographing to a particular song. And then it's
Mm-hmm.
just the two of us on the floor. Now, for the rest of the competitions, let's say in American Smooth, something like a waltz, you actually go out there with up to 12 couples and they play music. You know it's going to be a waltz, but you don't know what song it's going to be. So a lot of the competition is the floor craft around how you can navigate the floor with other couples and being able to interpret the music and putting your routine to it really on the fly. So there's the practice component of it, and then there's a very big impromptu component. Sometimes
Yeah.
the music is a little bit slower, sometimes it's a little bit faster, sometimes there are more people on the floor, sometimes there aren't. So it really depends on the size of the competition also. So it's been an incredible journey and I can't wait to continue it.
So if you had to finish the sentence, for me, dance is, what would that be?
Life.
That's the word that I had as I was listening to you, right? Life. It's interesting. I want to share with you, I was just interviewing a couple of weeks ago. I believe she's 14 year old, and she's also a dancer. And I asked the same question, what is dance for you? And she's a very introverted individual, beautiful, beautiful lady. And she says, when I'm dancing, I am just expressing who I am. And that's what, and you just said it beautifully in a little bit in a different way. So thank you for that. It is life, and that's why a lot of poems are all about dance and life analogy and how life is a dance in different categories. So speaking with that, I did not know that it was a composition on the fly, which reminds me of the table topics in Toastmasters. When you guys, for all of you, or for some of you who don't know what Toastmasters are, if I mean, could take it away, Birgit? How would you explain to people what are what is Toastmasters?
It's I would say an educational organization that teaches communication and leadership skills. I joined specifically because of communication. And essentially, clubs have meetings, and there are a ton of clubs. I think in this district alone, there are hundreds, 300 or 400, I think, in the meantime. And you meet on a regular basis weekly and you practice your speaking skills. And then you get feedback from members. And it's really the place to experiment. Because if you're not sure how a certain presentation tactic is going to work, you don't want to try it at work first. You want to try it in Toastmasters first and get some feedback. So it's a great way to learn, and it's ongoing learning. So just like in dance, you don't stop training. Is marathon runners don't stop training. Musicians, sports folks, nobody stops training. And the same thing with speaking. If you don't keep practicing, then 1 or 2 speeches a year aren't going to keep your skills up to par. And then you're going to keep battling those nerves, for example. But if you
Yeah.
start getting used to it and getting feedback, you can improve that way as well.
Absolutely. What got you into Toastmasters and also like speaking, improving your speaking ability in the first place? Can you remember? And it's going to be a loaded question. I'm a master of that. For some reason, I just thinking about so many different things. The second part to that question, if you can go into the very first public speaking experience, if you could tell us about that. Were you scared? Was it exciting for you? How was it?
Oh boy, which one do I start with? Um,
I,
I would say, let me start with the second part first. And I would say my first public speaking was actually in the theme park because I had talking pieces that were in front of 2,000 people. And then also in the theater. Now, the difference is that's very memorized and you know exactly what you're going to say. The first non-theater public speaking, oh geez, I just ran across a video that I did in graduate school. It was actually broadcast on TV back in Southern Virginia. And I looked so stiff and just like that was interesting. All right, next question. um,
but may I interrupt you for a second?
mhm.
Sorry. Let's go back to even the scripted speech that you were given. You were giving. Were you nervous?
No, because of the amount of rehearsal that we did. because it was so scripted, there was really no chance in impromptu unless something went really wrong on stage, in which case you had to make up something. Like the time we tied the maypole in the knots in the German show, you kind of had to say something. You can't just let this big knot lie there without saying something. But I wasn't, because of the amount of rehearsal and because I'd grown up really performing in theater. So it's something I
Yes.
wasn't really nervous about. I think the first time
And
I was, go ahead.
go ahead. I'll just to clarify the amount of rehearsals, so that people can get an idea. Is it 3 times, 4 times? Is it like 20 times? How many times did you rehearse?
Oh, for a particular community theater show, I remember rehearsing for 5 to 6 weeks, about 5 times a week. So a lot of rehearsal.
That's a
Now in the
lot.
theme park, that was all condensed, and we did 8 to 10 hours a day for 3 weeks before we went live. But there's a lot of rehearsal. There's a ton. Don't underestimate that ever. So when you see anything, any kind of actor, dancer, singer, musician, don't underestimate what it takes to get there.
Oh, well, I never do, because I do the same thing. I'm a performer, so I know exactly how much work is behind the scenes. In fact, one of my early coaches and teachers, they said, if you see the work, when you see an actor on stage, if you see what they are doing and how hard they're trying, they're amateurs still. When you think that it's on the fly, that's an incredible amount of hours and work and practice that's put behind it. And that's what I'm teaching my kids right now. Like, this is professional. This is a professional. This is how, because it looks like, oh, he or she just got into it and they started speaking or doing something. And that's the ease. When you see the ease and the fun, are you having fun on stage
Oh, I am.
when you
And by the way, I just heard you sing 2 days ago for the first time. You've got a great voice. So, by the way.
oh. Yeah, thank you so much. Yeah, so it's incredible. I just want to emphasize, it's really important, in my opinion, to have fun when you are speaking. But for people who have this absolutely paralyzing fear of public speaking, what would you tell them? Like, how to overcome that very first huge barrier?
Join a Toastmasters club. I would
That
say,
would be.
yeah, take baby steps though. Yeah, just start with something small at the beginning. When you go to Toastmasters club, you're a guest the first time, right? Or the first couple of times. Sometimes it's just introducing yourself, and whether it's in a Toastmasters club, whether it's walking up to a group of people at a party, just start by something simple. And we all know how to talk about ourselves. Just reveal a short story, or get better at asking questions and listening. Instead of trying to think about what you're going to say in response, listen to what that initial response even is and pick it up from there. So I would say start small, take baby steps before. Don't get out there and try to do a keynote half an hour at the very first go round. Start with very small steps, because every little step will help you along the way.
Yeah. Well, we met, let me just tell you guys how Birgit and I met. We met through Storytellers Club. I'm also a part of the club. I'm the president right now. But Birgit is a member in the club. And since you are a very experienced Toastmaster and you've been doing it for so many years, you served as a PR, as president for other clubs. So could you tell, like, why storytelling? Like, why is it appealing to you?
Let me take a step back, and then I'll definitely get to that piece, because I would say you were still saying, my first public speaking experience was actually in consulting in the work world. And you're
Hmm.
talking to project teams, you're talking to customers, you're talking to other people on your own team. And it wasn't immediately getting up on stage. But if you think about it, if you're just giving a status report in a meeting, all of that is really a lower key version of public speaking. And once I joined SAP, a friend of mine, actually, Mario, said, "Oh, yeah, have you heard of this Toastmasters thing? You might enjoy it, because we do public speaking." And I could have taken that as "You're horrible, please join because we need to improve you." Or it could have been, "Really, you might really enjoy this." And I was already doing a lot of presentation for work conferences and actually getting pretty good scores. So I joined specifically to get better at the impromptu speaking where you don't know what's going to come at you. And you mentioned table topics previously. It's that part of the meeting where somebody throws out a question and you have to come up with a 1 to 2 minute answer. And you don't know ahead of time what that question is going to be. And in the
Yeah.
work world, an interview is like that. And in my world, question and answer sessions at the end of a presentation are definitely like that. You don't know what you're going to get. And I wanted to get
Mhm.
better at that. And interestingly, my scores went up once that happened. And the reason I
But
joined
you joined Toastmasters initially, right? Through the work,
through,
not through Toast.
yeah, well, someone at work recommended it. It was a corporate club, but it was also open. So even if you didn't work for SAP, you could also join. And that club still exists today. And
Mhm.
storytelling, I know it's kind of a trend to say everybody's got a story and businesses need to do more storytelling, but it's very true. Nobody wants to hear the old adage of, I'm going to tell you what I'm going to tell you, I'm going to tell you, and then I'm going to tell you what I told you. And yeah, that has merits in some cases, but you really want to back all of that up with stories. And stories sometimes have a surprise ending. So you're not going to want to tell them the end of the story when you start the speech. And that's especially important if you're trying to persuade somebody. You don't say, I want you to do this, but you want to
Mhm.
bring them there step by step, especially if you know that they're probably not wanting to take that course of action in the first place. But storytelling makes it real. Instead of just saying, oh, well, there's a great, return on investment here, or, oh, you can get better at speaking with Toastmasters. Having those personal stories out there of people's experience, I mean, that's really fascinating. And storytelling is also this nice mix of, doesn't have to be a true story. Now, in the Storytellers Club, it doesn't have to be a true story. In business, it does. You don't want to make up stories about your customers, but it's also very interesting to get that creativity going and maybe make up a story of something that didn't happen. And
Mhm.
just to see where it takes you, which is really more, if you think of fiction and nonfiction, I think storytelling can be used in both. And that's one of the
What
things
is
fascinating to me about storytelling.
Yeah, yeah, we'll get more. I have more questions around storytelling, but what is creativity for you?
It's really thinking of what you want your message to be and then expressing it. So I guess the best example that I have is a lot of times in a lot of organizations, you're given and I have to say Toastmasters does this too. Here's a sample PowerPoint that we want you to use to train officers. I never use it. I shouldn't say that out loud. I use it as a guideline, but it's also, I want to keep it interactive. And how can I creatively communicate to a group of officers that I'm training kind of the best practices that I've found? So being able to come up with creative ways to do that. And creative ways also means that you want to make it stick. So you want to have an emotional impact. You want to be able to make your message stick. And you can't really do that in a unique way if you just keep doing things the way they've always been done. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm. It does. It does make a lot of sense for me because I'm always trying to create something new, whether that's writing a song. I mean, it depends on what I'm doing, whether that's business related. I mean, everything is, to me, creativity is life. Like dance is life for you. If we don't create, in fact, well, I don't have it around me, but on my, I think it's on my YouTube and on TikTok, which is I have only two of them. I just started. I didn't really get into that deeply yet, but it says there's a sign, react. But if you think about it, if you switch the words, not the words, the letters around, then react becomes create. It's the same set of letters except for the last e. So instead of reacting to life, that's when it's so easy to get into the negativity, especially right now in the world we live in. You create your opportunities, you create stories, you create, um, circumstances, you create people, you create your own world you want to see around you, and you become an active component of it. So
Yeah,
that's
it's also
creativity.
originality, because when I think about, some of the finance, marketing, and thought leadership, it's you want to stand out, so you need creativity to make your message different from your competitors, for example. And in dance, it's that creative choreography to really tell a story. So that's kind of a big aspect of it, is being able to create and using the tools that you have in the elements and putting them together in a unique way. And the same is
Exactly.
true of public speaking, is to tell a story not the same way somebody else is telling a story, but to put your personal spin on it.
Yes, yes. Well, and I want people to hear that. Just put your personal spin on that. And you know why I'm saying that? Because the teenagers and preteens that I usually interview on my other show, Unspoken Conversations with the Youth, it really stuck with me when one of my guests on the show said, everybody talks about being different, being different, being different. And I really don't know how to be different. And we had a conversation about that. And I said, what instead of being different, you're just being you? And she agreed with me, and she actually added to that. Like, how about I just want to be myself? I don't want to be different. And that's exactly what you're talking about. It just put in everything. Somebody said everything has been said and written and done already, and which is true. Like in literature, and basically, there's another expression about like how there are three basic stories, and they just repeat it again and again and again. But everyone has their own spin on it. So, but it's gonna be a perfect segue for me to ask you, what is your, Birgit, what is your process of crafting a story? And I like, if you could share maybe 2 3 practical tips that we promise people that they're gonna get, something that will help them to start. And it could be very basic, but it's the components of a story, plus you can go into the delivery too if you want to.
Okay. I would say, let's try to keep it on speaking, since we started talking about Toastmasters a lot. But I would say to keep the end in mind. Um, if you talk to a lot of fiction writers, they're saying that, oh, my character took on its own life as I was writing, right? Which is, yeah, a whole different process. But if you only have in Toastmasters 5 to 7 minutes, or if you only have a presentation time of 20 minutes or half an hour or 3 minutes, whatever it is, what do you want people to walk away with? What's the main message? Do you want them to feel something? Do you want them to do something? And then you can kind of work backwards. Well, what kind of story do I want to tell that would make an impact? And it's always keeping in mind what's in it for me being the listener at that point. And I think that's one of the reasons why people get nervous. They focus a lot on themselves, and they overcome those nerves when they start focusing on the audience. So I would say start with the end in mind. That's my tip number one. What do you want them to do? And
Can
then
I can I, can I just, may I emphasize what you said is very important. Like me being the listener, I hope everybody got that. So what you are actually saying, I just want people to understand that when we are creating the story, keeping the end in mind for the listener. So when you, it's because it's not easy sometimes when we are in the story and we are emotionally attached to it. It's very difficult when you are, like Les Brown is usually saying, right? When you can't see the picture when you are in the frame, so you have to take yourself out of the picture and become the listener and think about what's in it for me if I'm the listener, or what's in it for them, like what are they going to get out of it. I just wanted to emphasize. Sorry, that's tip number one. What's tip number two?
well, I think tip number two is to first don't edit yourself, put down all of your ideas. And then as a corollary, edit. You don't have to tell every single story that you could about every single point. So I would say first put down everything that you can think of, and then start editing to figure out, well, what can I use to support what I want somebody to walk away with, and what's going to have the most impact. And if I have a list of 10 things that I could talk about, but I only have 5 minutes, I'm not going to talk about 10 things. What are my top one, two, or three? If I have 45 minutes, okay, maybe I can break it down to saying my top 10, like the old David Letterman top 10 lists, right? So depending on the amount of time that you have, but I would say, you know, having a lot to choose from, but then actually editing yourself to make sure that you actually have the points that would make the most impact to a listener. I would say that's very key.
And I love, may I just suggest that I love the fact that you were saying first don't edit yourself, and then you do. When you put all the things that you want to talk about, then you start the process of editing. But don't edit before you start. That's the thing, yeah. Because a lot of
Yeah.
I did that mistake. I made that mistake myself at the just a few years ago, when I would just think about three things I want to talk about, but then those three things might not be related to the message that I am going to share at the very end of the story, and I might as well take out like point number one and insert something instead. But if I only had three at the beginning, there's nothing to insert, and then I have to go to start the process again. Okay, thank you.
And then you're trying to force that message into it. And
That's
but then it's also a nice story collection. So you've got something that you thought about including, but then you can include it in another speech, for example, or another
yeah,
presentation.
and
So
it becomes a bank of ideas. Yes, yeah, good point. Thank you. Uh-huh.
I think the third one is just start. A lot of times when you're writing, it's easy to stare at a piece of paper, and they call that writer's block, and nothing comes out unless you just start. And it goes back to the tip number 2 is you need to edit, but you need to start. And it's easy to procrastinate. It's easy to become overwhelmed. And sometimes you're just afraid to start because you haven't done the work of what is it that I'm actually trying to say. But I would say definitely take that first step, whether it's in speaking or in writing or whatever it is. You need to start, because a lot of people think about, I used to do that actually. It was like I would think about things so much before I'd actually do them, but then I had very little time to actually finish the preparation.
Yeah,
So yeah, and sometimes it's a multi-step process. You can't
right.
start with step number 5. You got to start with step 1.
Step one. All great tips. I love them. I'm curious, like, what is your personal process of crafting? Meaning, do you actually, right now at the level where you are, do you actually write your speech before you present it, or like what is it? And I know it's gonna be different for everyone. That's why I'm asking you specifically.
I do not write my speeches. The reason I do not is, I mean, it's great for theater and necessary for theater. It's definitely a must for dance choreography. But even for work, I don't write them out. A lot of times we are required to use PowerPoints, but I don't write things out. I keep my PowerPoints to just a bulleted or very graphical level, but I don't write things out. And in Toastmasters, I have never written them out. I try to think of a good phrase that I want to keep repeating for the beginning and the end. In between, I write down bullet points and then a note on which story, or sometimes 2 stories, would support a particular bullet point. And sure, I'll practice. That being said, if I were to write it out, it then you need to insert another whole process step of acting lessons, and making sure that, like you said, it's difficult to make it sound and look natural. And a lot of people, when they write their speeches out and they forget a word, they lose the rest of the speech. They just forget,
Mhm.
and they can't
Yeah.
jump beyond that because they haven't really internalized what they want to say. So I personally don't write them. I do know what points I'm going to talk about, but I don't memorize them. Now, if it's a topic that I talk about a lot, I will find myself using the same phrases over and over again because I can see that something resonated with the audience. Yeah, at work, it's
Mhm.
really funny, that something resonates because, somebody's starting to take pictures of the PowerPoint that you're showing. I always
Right.
love yeah, but you can kind of see people's interests, in Toastmasters when I'm experimenting with different things that I want to do. And yeah, when people start to nod, I mean, you can even see that on Zoom. You don't have to be in front of them physically. And then I make a note, okay, well, that worked, or that felt good in terms of that saying makes sense to me, and I feel natural saying it, and it's conveying what I want it to convey. I know some people love writing, some people love outlining. While I do love to write, I don't love to write my speeches.
Yeah, but it's a good thing, and I think it's so valuable to know where you want to start. Like, what's the first phrase, what's your opening, and what you're gonna be finishing with, because that's your message. And then the inside, if you have bullet points, it's good enough for you. For some people, love to write, but I totally agree with you. If you write it word by word and memorize it word by word, if you forget one word goes out, you know. For a walk, you stuck. And people, and I've seen it so many different times. So
Oh yeah.
I never memorize my speeches, for good, for bad, I don't know. It's
It's
just the
very good.
way I
Well, it's your personality too, because if you were to start using the pregnant, pause it, I'd be like, Zhanna, do you feel okay? And I think
oh
a couple of times I tried, yeah, and I tend to speak more quickly. Actually, in German, I speak even more quickly, but it is what it is the way that
it's yeah, it's your
I
pace.
naturally speak. It's the way that I naturally speak. In English, it's actually already a little bit slower, which is pretty frightening. But there are certain places where you want to put pauses because you want people to think about it, or this is a major point that you want them to take home. I am not one of those
Hmm.
people that pauses between
Right.
too many. Right, you want to jump in and finish my sentence for me, because that's not my personality either. So whatever style you have, and for a lot of motivational speakers, they actually want you to think about every word that they say, and that's a valid way of presenting, but it's not my personality. So I think it needs
Absolutely.
to match who you are in terms of how you're going to speak.
Yes, and these are all I should probably mention. I want to mention that. So, Birgit, you are a very experienced speaker. I would say if somebody is listening to us who is just starting, follow and try to model probably the rules. And the rules are: write your speech, right from the for word by word, and try it. If it doesn't work, I always recommend first copying somebody who's done it before. There is a model that works for a lot of people. And then when you get comfortable, you find your own voice, you find your own style, you find yourself, you are more in tune in who you, who you are, right? And then from there you can develop,
And the thing is, just
right?
because you write the speech out doesn't mean you need to memorize it. Sometimes the exercise of writing is already a really good process for you to organize your thoughts, because then, now that we're not in the days of typewriters anymore, you can just take a paragraph and move it to a different place within the document. But sometimes the act of writing will help you organize your thoughts. Whether or not you memorize them doesn't matter, because you've already organized your thinking and you can see it on a piece of paper, but that doesn't mean you have to memorize it word for word. So that's kind of the in-between process, which also works.
Yeah, yeah. One of the writers, I don't remember who, said, I don't even know what my opinion on things are until I write it. Which is right, because when you're writing, and especially writing by hand, I usually recommend writing by hand. There is something magical about it rather than typing, but we live in the electronic world.
Unless you have my
It
handwriting, but that's another story.
we're gonna switch gears, but definitely for those of you, and right now, actually, let me ask you this. Who do you recommend working on their public speaking skills, like on becoming a better communication skill? Like, who is it for? Like Toastmaster, the whole world of Toastmaster, who is it for?
Actually, for anyone, because it's not just about public speaking, it's about gaining confidence. So the program really helps you with that. Yes, it's a communication and leadership organization. You don't have to want to be a leader, although there are a lot of people that lead religious discussions, or they coach their children's softball teams. So there are a lot of different other things where you can use it. But even just in an interview, you're answering questions, and you're answering impromptu, or as we call them, table topic questions. So I would say to absolutely anybody that wants to build some confidence. And it's also a great way to make friends. I mean, it's also very social, and don't forget that. It's a lot of fun. You meet some people. I would say there are a lot of clubs. Each one has a little bit of a different personality. This is my only storytelling club. There are a couple, but I would say, probably 90% of them of clubs are not storytelling clubs. Probably even 95% are not. But
Right.
they're different ones with different specialties. So whatever
Mhm.
you want to do, are you looking to speak more professionally? There's a club for that. Do you want more community engagement? There's a club for that. Do you want to do storytelling? There's a club for that. Improv, there's a club for that. So, or many clubs for all
Yeah.
of these different things. So figure out what you want to do, and you can join more than one. Like, as you read in my bio, I'm a member of 3 at the
Yes.
moment. So
Yes, absolutely.
yeah.
Yeah, the sky is the limit. Actually, the
Yeah.
sky is not the limit. I've been there. After I did skydiving, I do not agree with people when they say sky is the limit. I say no, I've been there. It's not the limit anymore. Uh, yeah, so I totally agree with you that Toastmasters, you don't have to be like trying to be a motivational, inspirational speaker. You don't have to be on big stages. It's just for it's great for introverted people. Right now, who knew? We are so active. Like you can join any club in the world because it's you're not local all of a sudden. Anybody can join anyone, right? So, but we definitely, I mean, if storytelling is your thing, come join our storytelling club. We can put the link. By the way, come to the open house, which is coming up, and you can come to our open house. Try other clubs. It's just amazing what it does for your writing skills, for your speaking skills. And hey, we're not attached to the results. We just expressing the opinion because I'm also a big fan of Toastmasters. Switching gears a little bit, Birgit, if you had to give a book to someone as a gift, or it could be a quote. Maybe it's your own, in your own words, something that you live by. Maybe you've heard somebody gave you a great advice and you still remember and you live by that. What would that be? Or both. So a book or a quote or.
I'll do both. And instead of actually quoting another author, if I could give a book to someone, it would actually be, in the 80s, they called them nothing books, really pretty cover with just empty lines to really encourage people to write. And you don't even have to write, just, jot down a couple of things that you're interested
Basically
in.
this.
Yeah,
This.
exactly. Exactly.
Yes.
And because it's ballroom, right? I have a sparkly pink one.
There you go. Yes, you could go fancy with that. Yeah.
Exactly.
I love that. I didn't know they're called nothing books.
It's an 80s thing. I'm such a child of the 80s. But they used to actually have that brand name, Nothing Books. And the quote, one of my favorite quotes is Shanna LaFleur. It takes an
I write,
Yeah, it
I'm
takes
sorry.
go ahead.
I just want to write it down. Nothing books. I just love it. Nothing books. And a
It
quote?
it takes an athlete to dance, but an artist to be a dancer. And you can apply that to all facets of your life, but it's so true.
Yeah, I
I can
love
write an
that.
essay on that, but I'm just going to let the quote stand on its own.
Oh my goodness, I can't. I just want to talk and talk and talk and talk with you. We definitely, there's so many aspects of speech, like public speaking and speech making, I would say, or the craft of speech making, and not only just speeches, but it's not about the speeches, it's about the impact. Are they compelling? Are the stories compelling enough? What is the message? And so, because we haven't even touched upon delivery and so many body language, online presentations, and so many different things. So we might have you back for another episode if you are willing to come.
Definitely.
We,
It'd be fun.
I would love to
I really
have
enjoyed
you.
speaking to you like this.
Yeah, I love that. You guys, Instagram people, thank you so much for joining us. I hope you're enjoying and you can hear us our conversation with Birgit Starmanns, right? I never can pronounce Starmanns. Birgit. So if you do enjoy it, and I'm sure you do, and people on Facebook, guys, on YouTube, if you will be watching us, if you're watching us on replay, please, by no means, let us know what is your biggest takeaway from today's conversation. Let us know if you are the experienced speaker, if you are just starting out, if you're afraid, like what are your thoughts? We would love to be here for you. If you have questions for Birgit, ask away. By the way, what is the best way, Birgit, to connect with you? Or is it social media? I put your LinkedIn profile, but maybe there is another way.
That's fine. That's totally fine.
LinkedIn. So
Yep.
connect with Birgit Starmanns, and it's on Facebook or HB Academy today. It's going to be underneath the description of the YouTube video. Please join and ask Birgit personally. If you have questions for me, ask away. If it's for both, anyway, just let us know what really speaks to you. And if you have other questions around speaking, or any other questions, any topics you would like us to discuss, please let us know too. And before we end the program, I want Birgit to ask you. Like I said, I've been watching some episodes of the TV program that you've been doing through the years and co-producing in on the community TV, right, station. And that was what was the name of it? Bay to Bay, right?
Toastmasters
Toastmasters Bay to
Bay.
Bay. It was an interesting format. I really loved it. And one of the speeches that stood out for me that you were delivering on that TV program, which is, by the way, easily found on YouTube. We can put the link to that too. But yeah, please just make sure that you send it, and I will insert it into the Facebook, or you can just simply comment underneath the video yourself. You guys can watch it. So Birgit, one of her speeches was about different dance shoes. So I thought, because she's a dancer, I thought if you were to start your own clothes line, it could be shoe line, but shoes are, it's not a lot of space on the shoes, but maybe on the shoe boxes. What message would we see to the world? Would we see from Birgit?
Uh, well, it has to have a lot of sparkles. We'll start with that. There have to be a lot of rhinestones involved in any kind of clothing line that I would do. But yeah, I like the whole idea of elegance. So I think that's going to be a big one. Just I mean, right now in Zoom, nobody's dressing up, and it's always so fun to dress up as you go out. So yeah, I think. But then just adding sparkle to your life is probably a good way to put that.
Add sparkle to your life. I love that. I love that. How about we'll challenge you to start your own shoe line. Add a sparkle to your life. Who knows? Yeah, I love that. This is really a great way to finish the show, and it's every time it's the end of something, it's the beginning of something new. So guys, you've been watching and listening Dream Big with Zhanna, inspiring you to reignite, refire, and refuel your life. And today we had a beautiful, insightful conversation with the amazing, sparkling Birgit Starmanns, and she advises you guys to add a sparkle to your life. Stay well, stay healthy, stay musical, and keep smiling no matter what. Keep sparkling. Thank you, Birgit. Thank you.
Thanks,
Guys, we'll see you. Yeah, we'll see you soon. Bye.